Act 2, Scene 4. This is the concluding part of Act 2, which is part of your syllabus. Act 1 and 2, which is part of the ISC Class 11 syllabus. Act 3, 4 and 5 we will do in Class 12 next year. Okay, this scene takes place as a minor scene involving minor characters. None of the main characters are there. It also kind of allows for the passage of time, the usual strategy which is adopted by Shakespeare, which you would have seen in Merchant of Venice as well. So here the main characters are Ross and an old man. Okay, so basically what happens is that on the way from the castle, Ross meets an old man. Okay, now this figure is a contrast to the three witches. Okay, so he has created this old man as a contrast to the three weird sisters. And while the witches were all about what will be in terms of making a prophecy, the old man is about what has been, talking about the past. So in that sense, it's also some kind of a contrast. So the old man describes how the natural order of the world has been distorted, whereas the witches, whenever they came, they ended up distorting the natural order. They were about evil, they were about the negative, they were about how the natural order would get distorted. He's talking about how the natural order has been distorted. So the old man says, I can remember clearly, 70 and 10 I can remember well, within the volume of which time I have seen hours dreadful and things strange, but this sore night hath trifled former knowings. The old man says that I can remember clearly what happened in the past 70 years. 70 means 60 plus 10. 70 referring to 60 and 10. 60 plus 10, 70. So he's referring to 70 years. So obviously that's a reference to his age. So I can remember clearly what happened in the last 70 years. In that time, volume to convey as if time was a book, within the volume of which time, almost as if referring to some kind of a book. So he says, in that time, I've seen many dreadful and rather strange things, in contrast to Lennox, who says that I've been very young. But the old man says that I've seen many strange and dreadful things, but last night has made my former experiences seem trivial. That is, trifled former knowledge. Trifled former knowledge means that my earlier knowledge, my experience of whatever I had seen in the last 70 years, that was insignificant. That was nothing in comparison to what I saw during this last night. So again, reminding the reader, reminding the audience that what happened on that night inside Macbeth's castle was something extremely dreadful, which should have been never done. The regicide was something extremely abominable that should have never been committed, right? So Ross says, yes, old man, you can see the skies are troubled. Good father, thou seest the heavens are troubled, with man's act threaten his bloody stage. By the clock it is day, and yet dark night strangles the traveling lamp. So Ross says that you can see that the skies are troubled by the acts of men, right? Because what happens on earth done by acts committed by man, they actually end up troubling the skies and the natural environment and atmosphere. So he says the skies are troubled by the act of men and threaten the bloody earth, the bloody stage on which the murder is being committed, right? The bloody stage as in the bloody earth, and they kind of threaten the bloody earth with storms. Now by the clock it is day. So he says, according to the clock it is daytime, yet dark night strangles the traveling lamp, that is the sun. So but it looks as if it is going to be nighttime, because the sun is almost being strangulated, personifying as if the dark night is strangulating the sun. Is it because the night is so strong and powerful than day, night's performing predominance, or the day shame? Is it because the night is so powerful than daytime that such an effect is being seen at this point in time? That darkness does the face of earth entomb, when living light should kiss it. That darkness is what is engulfing all of us at a time when actually it should be the time for living light. That is, at the time when light should be kissing it. So again, this reference to entomb, Tomb is what? It's a grave where the dead are there. So again, some kind of a reference, indirect reference to death. So you see, Shakespeare is constantly reminding you that some kind of a very dark deed, has actually taken place, and is constantly reinforcing it for the benefit of both the audience and the reader. So old man says, it is unnatural. It is rather unnatural. Even like the deed that is done on Tuesday night, a falcon towering in her pride of place was by a mousing owl hawked at and killed. So he's now referring to what happened on Tuesday night. So he says, just like the murder that has been committed, last Tuesday, a falcon was soaring proudly high in the sky. Falcon is like an eagle, a hawk, kite kind of a bird which preys upon other birds or serpents, etc., or fish for that matter. So a falcon was soaring, was flying proudly high in the sky, and it was attacked and killed by an owl which normally goes after mousing, It normally kills rats, but an owl, strangely enough, actually killed a falcon, again, which is an extremely unnatural act. Ross says this is also just as strange, and Duncan's horses, a thing most strange and certain, beauteous and swift. So he says Duncan's beautiful and swift horses, and the best, the minions. Now, minions normally is used in terms of conveying an unimportant person, but Shakespeare also uses in terms of conveying the best. So he says beauteous and swift, the minions of the race, the best among the race, that is Duncan's horses, turned wild in nature, broke their stalls, flung out, contending against obedience as they would make war with mankind. So he says they kind of suddenly turned wild, the horses of the King Duncan, and broke out of their stables, their stalls, and kicked wildly, flung out, and they refused to be obedient, refused to be tamed in any manner and be calm. They acted as if they were at war with mankind. So he says the two references, one to the horses of King Duncan and the fact that the owl killed the falcon, being referred to two animals and birds doing something which is completely against their nature. They are not supposed to be, because otherwise King Duncan's horses are considered to be the best and who would kind of be obedient. Old man says, it is said that they ate each other, that the two horses ate each other. Again, something very, very unnatural and gives you a very eerie kind of a feel. The same kind of feeling which you got when the witches made their appearance in Act 1, Scene 1 and Scene 3. So he says, Ross says, I saw it with my own eyes. The horses eating each other. It was an amazing and or a very astonishing amazement of mine eyes, very astonishing and very, revolting kind of sight that looked upon it. Here comes the good Macbeth. So now Macbeth comes here. So Macbeth says, can't you see for yourself? How goes the world, sir, now? Why see you not? He's greeting him, how is the world? Can't you see? Is it known who did this more than the bloody deed? So he says, is it known who did this? Those that Macbeth has slain. So Macbeth says, the two security guards who have been killed by Macbeth. Ross, alas the day. What good could they pretend? What a terrible, but what good did they gain by actually killing Duncan? Macbeth says they were hired. They were hired not goons. They were hired to do the job of killing the Duncan, suborned. They were suborned means they were hired. Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's two sons, are stolen away and fled. So what I said to you in the last part of Act 2, Scene 3, that are stolen and fled, which puts upon them the suspicion of the deed. The fact that the two sons have bolted away, have gone away on their horses, right? One, of course, to England and one to Ireland, which these guys may not be aware of. It puts the suspicion that they were the ones who had actually hired the two security guards to kill their father, possibly, so that they could ascend the throne, right? So that makes them the main suspects. Ross says, against nature still, thriftless ambition that will raving up thine own life's means, then it is most like the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth. This is important. So he says that this is even more unnatural. What an unwise ambition. Trifles means it's an unwise ambition, because you would naturally succeed your father, and already Duncan has announced Malcolm to be the next in line, right? In Act 1. So he says, what an unwise ambition which causes sons to kill their father who gave them life, right? And then it looks like Macbeth will become the king because he's the next in line in terms of the line of succession. The sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth. Well, he has already been named king. He says he's already named and gone to Scone to be invested, so that he's gone to Scone to be part of the ceremony. So this particular scene is giving you information of what is already happening behind the scenes. All that has not been shown. So this is kind of to convey the passage of time. That is what is the purpose of Act 2, Scene 4. Scone is a place where Scottish kings were crowned. So that's where Macbeth has gone. Ross says, where is Duncan's body? It has been carried to Colmkill. Okay, St. Colmkill is how it was pronounced. Now, it is a sacred burial place of his ancestors where their remains are preserved, where King Duncan's ancestors were also buried. And St. Columba's Call on the island of Iona, it's one of the Western Isles, was the traditional burial place for the Scottish kings. And that's probably the place which has been referred out here. Okay. The sacred storehouse of his predecessors, where his ancestors were buried, and the guardian of their bones, where they were buried. Ross says, will you go to Scone? No, cousin, I will go to Fife. Well, I will thither. So he asks him whether he will go to Scone. He says, no, I will go to Fife, which is Macduff's home. So he says, well, I will go to Scone. So Macduff says, may things go well there. Okay. See things well done there. Adieu. That is saying goodbye. Lest our old robes sit easier than our new. So he says, may things go well there. Goodbye. Lest our former king, that is King Duncan, turns out to be better suited for the job than the new King Macbeth. So he's being a little skeptical. Okay, the reference to old robes could be a reference to the robes of a king, which would be used in the investiture ceremony for the new king of Scotland, because he would be made to wear the royal robes. Okay, so he says turns out to be better suited for the job than the new king. Farewell, father, old man. God's benison go with you, and with those that would make good of bad and friends of foes. So he says, may God's blessing, benison means may God's blessing, go with you and with all those who turn bad into good and enemies into friends. So he's a positive influence, the old man, unlike the three witches who have planted the seed of ambition and cold ambition into Macbeth's mind, leading him to murder King Duncan, right? Though they did not say it, but they knew that if they do so, that's what Macbeth, with his ambition and greed, would actually naturally end up doing. So with this, we have come to the end of Act 2. Okay, you have all the notes, the question answers will follow, the MCQs will follow, and the reasoning questions will also follow. Okay, so that will take care of entire Macbeth for you. It should not be a problem. You would be able to read it on the laptop, and my suggestion always is to kind of read it as many times. Mark the keywords in your textbook so that there is visual memory, so that you see it as many times. And once you have understood how to answer, I wouldn't want you to keep writing it down. But once you read it multiple times, all those keywords should go into your mind, and that's what you should be using in your long answers, and that will get you full marks as far as Macbeth is concerned. Tata, bye-bye. God bless you.